recognize Congressman Kaloy Zarate for his sponsorship of House Bill 6052 to be followed by Congresswoman Franz Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the chairs of these joint committees and the staff, to my colleagues in the 18th Congress, to our resource persons, and to the Filipino people. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. This representation, together with the Makabayan Bloc, sponsored this House Bill number 6052, which seeks to grant applicant ABS-CBN corporations a renewed franchise for a period of 25 years. Mr. Chair, prior to joining Congress, I was a journalist and a lawyer by profession. My advocacy, therefore, is to uphold at all times the freedom of the press, of speech and expression, and access to information of our people. In Chavez versus Gonzalez, GR number 168338, decided on February 15, 2008, then Chief Justice Puno stated, and I quote, "Much has been written on the philosophical basis of press freedom as part of the larger right of free discussion and expression. Its practical importance, though, is more easily grasped. It is the chief source of information on current affairs. It is the most pervasive and perhaps most powerful vehicle of opinion and on public questions. It is the instrument by which citizens keep their government informed of their needs, their aspirations, and their grievances. It is the sharpest weapon in the fight to keep government responsible and efficient. Without a vigilant press, the mistakes of every administration would go uncorrected and its abuses unexposed." Close quote. Mr. Speaker, undeniably, applicant ABS-CBN Corporation through the years continuously performed such important function, acting as one of the chief sources of information so that our citizens would be informed of government actions and government of the people's needs, aspirations, and grievances. ABS-CBN Corporation is undoubtedly one of the leading broadcast companies in the Philippines, with its television and radio stations having millions of viewers, with nationwide and even international reach. The majority of the Filipino homes have radio and or television, and we have to admit that broadcasting is still the most accessible to our peoples as a means to receive up-to-date information, especially now. Especially now during these trying times of COVID-19 pandemic affecting our country and the rest of the world. The media plays a huge role to deliver to the public the current news and information necessary for our citizens' very own survival. Especially too, in this era of fake news, when delivered information, many even coming from officials and government agencies, is being spread like virus among our people in all platforms, particularly social media. ABS-CBN then can play a crucial role to counter this pernicious scheme. Now that the physical classes are seen as not safe and feasible for both children and educators, even Malacanang acknowledged that the applicant ABS-CBN could be instrumental for the government's push for distant learning. On its part, Mr. Speaker, ABS-CBN has already expressed support of the government's shift to distance learning in the time of pandemic through its educational and child development programs, which are already in existence even before the current crisis happened. Clearly, with the national presence of ABS-CBN, its accessibility and proven track record to produce quality educational content, it could effectively perform such a mandate in the new normal or the better normal in the educational sector. Further, the urgent grant of a franchise for a period of 25 years would be good news and bring good cheer to the thousands of Filipino workers of ABS-CBN. Last week, Mr. Speaker, we have already learned that some big corporations are planning to implement large-scale retrenchment due to the pandemic. Inevitably, thousands of Filipino people, thousands of Filipino workers would be out of work. It is within our power, therefore, not to add to the current state of massive unemployment by renewing the franchise of ABS-CBN in the most expeditious manner. We have the power not to exacerbate the rising unemployment rate in our country. I further implore this august body to also consider the contribution of ABS-CBN and its top artists and thousands of employees to our public funds through the payments of the corporate and the latter's personal income tax. It is also within our power not to lessen tax collections by renewing the franchise of ABS-CBN so it could continue to operate and provide a livelihood to many. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it is earnestly sought of the House Committee on Legislative Franchise that we give ABS-CBN Corporation a renewed franchise for a period of 25 years. Maraming salamat po at magandang umaga sa ating lahat.
Thank you, Kong Zarate. The Chair would like to recognize now Congresswoman Arlene Brosas. Sorry. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, my dear colleagues, and to all advocates of press freedom who are present in this hall. Nitong Pebrero, inihain ng Gabriela Women's Party kasama ang buong Makabayan Bloc ang panukala hinggil sa pag-renew ng prangkisa ng ABS-CBN. Pagsuporta ito sa panawagang depensahan ng kalayaan sa pamamahayag, lalo pat target ang network ng bantang pagpapasara ng Pangulo. Hindi lang isang beses, kundi makailang ulit niyang sinabing tutol siya na ma-renew ang prangkisa ng ABS-CBN. Sabi ng Pangulo noong Disyembre, he will see to it that the network will be out this year. The chief executive no less has been out and out attacking the press in his speeches. Hindi bulag at bingi ang mamamayan para mapalampas itong malinaw na atake sa malayang pamamahayag. Matapos nito, nagsampa ang Solicitor General ng co-warrant of case laban sa ABS-CBN hinggil sa umano'y mga paglabag sa franchise terms nito. May 5, eksaktong 7:52 ng gabi, na pwersang mawala sa ere ang ABS-CBN matapos mag-issue ang NTC ng cease and desist order na nakakakilabot na pagpapaalala kung paano ipinisara ang network noong 1972 ng diktadurang Marcos. Mr. Chair, pilit na inaalis ang koneksyon ng mga pangyayari at laging sinasabi na hindi ito usapin ng press freedom. Ang batas daw ay batas, kaya hindi pwedeng magpalabas, pero hindi kaya may kumukumpas para itigil ang palabas. Is it really a coincidence that the Solicitor General and the NTC are acting independently on the issue of ABS-CBN in accordance with their supposed mandates? Or is there a bigger force behind this? How do we make sense of the surplus of trolls, chest-beating Duralex, Sedlex, and even threatening ABS-CBN celebrities amid the pandemic? My dear colleagues, we cannot blindly insist on the primacy of the laws to justify the non-renewal of ABS-CBN franchise, when media freedom in all its vibrancy and varied interpretations is explicitly guaranteed in our very own Constitution. Sa panahon ngayon ng COVID-19 pandemic, higit na dapat tiyakin ang malayang pamamahayag at karapatan ng publiko sa impormasyon. Lalo pat nakaasa sa ABS-CBN ng milyon-milyon nating kababayan sa probinsya para sa pinakahuling balita. Mahalagang itaguyod din ng malayang pamamahayag sa kalagayang naglipa na ang mga makinarya ng kasinungalingan at takot na layuning patahimikin ng mamamayan. Totoong pribilehiyo ang pagkakaroon ng prangkisa. Pero hindi dapat ito isangkalan para sagkaan ang karapatan ng malayang pamamahayag at tanggalan ng trabaho ng mahigit 11,000 manggagawa sa isang iglap. The grant or non-grant of a franchise should not be weaponized to exert pressure on media reportage and to brandish supposed political will and eagerness to uphold our laws, when what is apparent are deliberate efforts to shut down the network in line with the President's wish. Hindi rin magkatimbang ang personal grudge at ang demokratikong karapatan sa malayang pamamahayag. During Ferdinand Marcos' tyrannical regime, ABS-CBN was forced to bow down to him and his kin after the declaration of martial law. Today, it seems like those who have a personal grudge on the media network are following the instructions of the same playbook which led to the death of thousands of Filipinos. Kung kayang gawin ito ang pagpapasara sa isang malaking kumpanya, gaya ng ABS-CBN, paano pa ang mga maliliit na radyo at pahayagan lalo sa probinsya? Kung makakalusot ang lantarang ataking ito sa media, Ano pa ang pipigil sa mga pwersa ng tiraniya para patahimikin ng mga kritikal na community journalists at ipasara ng bara-bara mga local newspapers? Hindi mainihiwalay ang isyong ito sa pangkalahatang klima ng impunidad kung saan binabali ang batas para takutin, dahasin o patayin pa nga ang mga mamayang kritikal sa mga pahayag at patakaran ng Pangulo. Maliit man o malaki ang target, atake ito sa kalayaang pinag-alayan ng buhay ng mga nauna sa atin at sa natitirang demokratikong espasyo sa atin. Hindi dapat maging bahagi ng new normal itong pagsagka at pag-atake sa malayang pamamahayag. Kailangang ibalik sa ere ang ABS-CBN sa lalong madaling panahon. At sa ginagawa nating deliberasyong ito, naway manaigang boses pabor sa pag-renew ng prangkisa ng ABS-CBN. May the forces of hope and freedom triumph over the powers that cloak tyrannical ambitions with supposed allegiance to our codes. Panawagan ko sa aking mga kasamahan sa Kongreso, huwag kayong matakot na manindigan para depensahan ang mahalagang haligi ng ating demokrasya. Pagsilbihan natin ang interes ng nakararaming mamayang Pilipino sa usapin ng prangkisang ito. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair.
Maraming salamat po. The Chair would like to recognize additional members, Congressman David Suarez, Congressman Lito Atienza, Congressman Ian D., Congressman Hataman, Congressman Ronnie Ong, and Congressman Enrico Pineda. Now, may we recognize Congressman Mark Go to sponsor House Bill 6138.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Our beloved Speaker, Alan Peter Cayetano, honorable colleagues, fellow sponsors, resource persons, friends, ladies and gentlemen, magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Mr. Chair, history will remember the COVID-19 crisis as the pandemic that has shaken this country and the rest of the world. An invisible enemy that has claimed lives, paralyzed the economy, and affected life as we know it. Understandably, the atmosphere looms with fear and uncertainty, and it is now more than ever that our constituents look to us for guidance and support, relying on our leadership to aid them through this difficult time. As we at Congress work day in and day out towards solutions that will help us rise above this crisis, history will also remember how we, the country, duly elected leaders, responded to these trying times. Once the time comes for our nation and future generations to look back at this bleak moment in history, it is my hope that we are not remembered as their leaders that allowed the country's largest broadcaster to shut down in the midst of the largest pandemic so far in this 21st century. The pandemic has only underscored the divide among Filipinos between ordinary citizens and authorities. Yet, the ABS-CBN shutdown has also further polarized these differences at a time when unity is crucial to our well-being and at a time when people need to access to news and important information. The country is in the midst of what is its most difficult health crisis yet, and at a time when the nation is in need for our united effort, now more than ever. As public servants, it is our duty to rise above our political leanings and our biases to serve towards a higher purpose and ensure the welfare of our constituents. The ABS-CBN shutdown is not a mere issue of media consumption, where we lose one network in a sea of other broadcasters and media platforms. It is an issue, wittingly or unwittingly, of public welfare. While there are those of us who are fortunate enough to have other options or on where to listen to the news or receive content, let us not forget that we have other countrymen in various parts of the country whose only source of information, especially at a time when public information is of highest priority, has been cut at the expense of their own safety. Last May 14, Typhoon Ambo made its landfall at eastern Visayas. According to reports, many families failed to prepare for the landfall after free television and radio broadcasts of ABS-CBN were shut down, as these are the only broadcast signals that can reach their homes. This lamentable incident brought about by Typhoon Ambo is insult added to injury in the wake of the trying times of our country has faced in the past months. Undeniably, the operation of broadcast media is imbued with public interest, and as the body mandated by the Constitution to determine the propriety of granting franchise, it is incumbent upon us to ensure that broadcast companies we allow to operate are compliant with the laws. They can be held accountable if need be and are capable of delivering their services effectively. That said, we must be reminded that our commitment to rules and technicalities is meant to facilitate and not defeat our greater commitment to social justice and general welfare. That is certainly not to say that we forego with rules, but to view them in light of exigent circumstances and what will best and imminently serve public interest. As we deliberate on the decision surrounding ABS-CBN's franchise grant, may we be reminded of our true objective to heal the nation's divide by ensuring public welfare. Let us think of the welfare of the 11,000 workers and their families whose livelihoods are threatened in the midst of the pandemic, of Filipinos in the far-flung areas who rely on ABS-CBN as their sole source of information, and of millions of homes around the nation who are informed, entertained, and educated through its various programs. As a sponsor of this bill, I urge the members of this committee to really dissect the measure, to be critical, to examine thoroughly the answers of our invited guests, and to get to the bottom of the issues being thrown at the network. And then let us contemplate on the long-term impact of what we do today. Let our decision be grounded on promoting the interest of the Filipino people above all. Let us all, in a manner of reflective of our sworn duty of public service. After the public outcry, this is an opportunity for us to show a unified front in uplifting what is best for Filipinos. Woodrow Wilson once said, "We are not here merely to make a living. We are here to enrich the world." My honorable colleagues, we make things happen for the country. We need partners in the corporate world who share the same commitment to serving the Filipino people. For this reason, this representation seeks the urgent grant of ABS-CBN's 25-year franchise. Thank you at magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Pagpalain tayo ng ating po Panginoong Diyos. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Congressman Mark Go. The Chair would like to recognize now Congressman Dong Gonzales and Congressman Johnny Pimentel to sponsor House Bill 5608. Congressman Gonzales.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, our Speaker, Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano, to our dear colleagues, to our resource persons, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Isa po ako sa mga author sa pagbibigay ng pagre-renew ng prangkisa ng ABS-CBN at sa mga industriyang nakakatulong at nakakapagbigay ginhawa sa mga Pilipino. Naniniwala po ako sa pamamagitan ng magtutulungan ng mga pribadong sektor at ng gobyerno, mabibigyan natin ng mga consumer ng isang mabisang paghahatid na serbisyong publiko. Sa katunayan po, kasama natin si Chairman Alvarez, isa po tayo sa sumuporta upang may sa batas ang renewal ng prangkisa ng GMA Network, Smart Telecommunications, Globe Telecom, at iba pang mga lokal na prangkisa noong 17th Congress. Mr. Chairman, I have no vested interest in the outcome of this renewal. Hindi po ako investor, hindi rin po ako producer, at mas lalong hindi po ako artista ng ABS-CBN. Isa lang po ako sa mga Pilipino na gustong makita uli sa ere ang ABS-CBN. 29 years ago, Mr. Chairman, pumutok po noong June 15, 1991 ang Mount Pinatubo. Malaki po ang epekto nito sa aming probinsya sa Pampanga. Ang ABS-CBN po during that time ang nag-aabot ng ayuda at nag-cover ng mga pangyayari. Ganun din po noong October 1, 1995, dumating po ang malaking lahar sa aming probinsya which covered the whole province, most especially Bacolor. Wala pong social media during that time. Saksi po ako bilang biktima at miyembro ng Save Pampanga Movement. Kasama ang administrasyon noon sa pagligtas ng mga biktima ng mga panahon na iyon. Naging kaagapay ko po sila, istasyon ng mga pagbibigay ng oportunidad at trabaho sa mga kapampangan. Naalala niyo po ba yung teleserye na May Bukas Pa? Si Santino, isang taon po nating sinubaybayan yun. Yung San Guillermo Church po na lumubog ng lahar, sa Bacolor po yun. More than a year po, nanood po tayo ng teleserye. Maraming luhang tumulo, umiyak, dahil sa kwento ni Santino. Dahil po sa teleseryeng yun, marami po mga bata ang nag-field trip at naging turista po na bumibisita sa aming bayan, sa 3rd District, sa San Fernando, lalong-lalo na sa bayan ng Bacolor. Nagbigay po ito ng kaginawahan na ginawa kong batas na Republic Act 9506 at yun ang aking ginawa during my first term. Yung pakiramdam po ng mga kababayan ko, ay, sabi po nila, may pag-asa pa pala yung bayan natin. May pag-asa pa pala kasi nakita sa buong mundo kung paano nagbigay ng tulong at lumubog na lahar ang bayan ng Bacolor. Nais ko lang pong malaman, Mr. Chairman, kung may kaso po sa korte, sa SEC, sa BIR, sa DOJ, sa Ombudsman, sa NTC, sa NLRC, at iba-ibang quasi-judicial tribunal. At kung mayroon man po, siguro po ito, ano po ang estado kaya ng mga ito? Kaya nandito po tayo para malaman ito. Your Honor, dito po sa Kongreso, ginagawa po natin ang investigasyon in aid of legislation. At hindi po para patunayan kung guilty o hindi ang isang partido. Kaya po kapag may nakita kaming paglabag sa batas, amin po itong idudulog sa tamang ahensya ng pamahalaan para sa nararapat na aksyonan. This is an avowed respect of the rule of law. Nararapat lang po ipagkaloob at ibigay natin ang ABS-CBN ang presumption of innocence hanggat wala pa po tayong pinal na desisyon ang ating korte sa mga bintang na ito. At the end of the day, if these transgressions are proven to be true by the courts in the violation of the Constitution and its franchise law, tayo po mismo sa Kongreso, tayo mismo ang magre-recall at magre-revoke ng kanilang prangkisa. Sa ABS-CBN naman po, lagi niyong isinasama ang identity na katagang in the service of the Filipino. Pero and the press freedom. Pero negosyo po to. Kumikita po kayo dito, kaya nakakapagbayad po kayo ng bilyon-bilyon sa BIR. The closure of ABS-CBN suppresses the opportunity afforded to every Filipino people to engage in any livelihood or business bearing in the protection of labor of 11,000 workers and the right to its just share in the profits and enshrine and protected our Constitution. Sa huli po, bahagi po ako sa maraming milyong Pilipino sa pagsubaybay ng serbisyo publiko ng ABS-CBN. Ang layunin ko po dito ay layunin ng milyon-milyong Pilipino. Dakal pong salamat, payabak po kayo.
Thank you, Congressman Gonzales. Congressman Johnny Pimentel.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Please proceed, Cong Pimentel.
Yes, can you hear me now, Mr. Chair?
Yes, narinig po kayo. Please proceed.
Okay, Mr. Chair, thank you to Speaker Cayetano. Thank you, Chairman Alvarez. Thank you also, Chairman Alvarado, for giving me the opportunity to sponsor House Bill number 5608. The ABS-CBN Corporation has been a key leader in both television and radio programming for both domestic and international audiences since its inception in the last century. It has entered many Filipino homes in delivering media content to report news from around the Philippines and across the globe. In the major events and turning points in Philippine history, ABS-CBN News has consistently appraised the Filipino nation of the news that it needs to know. I speak, Mr. Chair, before this committee as one of the principal sponsors or authors for the renewal of the ABS-CBN franchise. I also speak in behalf of the provincianos, just like me, whose main source of news update is broadcasting network and who were therefore cut off from the world when ABS-CBN went off air on May 5. The News and Public Affairs program of ABS-CBN serve as the only avenue for crucial and relevant information for a great number of our countrymen. It is the source of information in the most far-flung areas of our country, keeping the far reaches it's up to date with the relevant happenings. Mr. Chair, the onset of year 2020 is all but never been short of interesting events. From the brewing conflict between the United States and Iran to the eruption of Mount Taal in Batangas and to the occurrence of the present COVID-19 pandemic that has affected the whole world. In all these events and those that came before, ABS-CBN has been the vehicle in keeping the Filipino people informed of its vital news. It should be noted, Mr. Chair, by Congress that the cessation of ABS-CBN broadcast operation has caused particular hardship in distraught due to the lack of accessible information in warning the people in provinces ravaged by Typhoon Ambo. The circulation of important information in times of calamity prevents fatalities and saves lives. Those far-flung areas of the Philippines which rely only on broadcast signal were left without needed news, effectively rather cut off from critical information, Mr. Chair. Today, we face a new normal. We still stand in the middle of a pandemic that has devastated many great nations and many strong economies. For many of our countrymen, a weather of uncertainty beckons. More than ever, the Filipinos need to be appraised with the current situation in our war against the pandemic and how the Philippine government is addressing the crisis. The cessation of a broadcasting network that has been one in keeping the public informed is surely a disservice to the Filipino people, Mr. Chair. A functioning and effective democracy is based on an informed citizenry unbridled by censorship. Let us stand to ensure that the Filipino people is always kept informed of the news and occurrences that directly affect their way of life. I appeal to my colleagues in the 18th Congress that we correct such disservice. Mr. Chair, the passage of this bill is earnestly sought. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Congressman Pimentel. Now, may we recognize Deputy Speaker Lauren Legarda to sponsor House Bill 6293.
Mr. Chairman, do you hear me?
Yes, narinig po kayo.
Thank you. For some reason, there's no video. The internet is down now. I hope I am heard loud and clear, Mr. Chairman.
Malinaw po, ma'am.
Mr. Speaker, good morning, Chairman Chicoy Alvarez, to the members of the committee and our esteemed colleagues, panel persons, resource speakers. Much has already been said about why Congress should pass the House bills on the ABS-CBN legislative franchise. I will no longer belabor any of the points raised by your esteemed colleagues. This representation acknowledges that there have been issues raised for and against the pending measures, and all these must be addressed in the spirit of fairness, parity, and transparency. Allow me to just place on record that having been part of this news organization from 1986 to 1998, before I became senator, those were the years that formed a great part of my life, which I cherish. I stand for the corporation's 11,000 employees or more, composed of the rank and file, talents, professionals, my previous co-workers, who are facing uncertainty with regard to their jobs and sources of income and livelihood at this worst possible time as we face the COVID-19 pandemic. Let us all help them, and let us help the industry. Lastly, I wish to thank the Committee on Legislative Franchise for taking up these House bills in this morning's public hearing. May I also request, Mr. Chairman, that my whole explanatory note in my proposed measure be part of the record, since I was only given 2 minutes to deliver the statement. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker Lauren De Garda. Noted on your request. Finally, before we recognize our last sponsor, the Chair would like to recognize additional members present. Congressman De Venecia, Congresswoman Bagat Singh, Congresswoman Helen Tan, Agabas, and Babasa. So now let's recognize Congressman Edsa Lagman to sponsor House Resolution 639.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
Please proceed po, Congressman Lagman. Narinig po kayo.
Honorable Joint Chairman, and distinguished colleagues, in order to expedite the proceedings, I am restating the whereas clauses of resolution number 639 as my sponsorship statement. This resolution is entitled, and I quote, "Resolution urging the Committee on Legislative Franchises to report out without further delay for plenary action a consolidated version of 8, now 12, pending bills, proposing for the renewal for another 25 years of the legislative franchise of ABS-CBN Corporation." Let me underscore very briefly 3 overriding points of importance. 1, this resolution was filed on January 6, 2020, or 4 months before the operation of ABS-CBN was shut down on May 5, 2020. 2, resolution number 639 was signed and endorsed by almost 100 members of the House, not including some authors and co-authors of pending bills who opted not to sign anymore because their positions are well known and manifest. And 3, resolution number 639 has continuing relevance until the Congress has approved the renewal or grant of a new legislative franchise to ABS-CBN for another 25 years, and such proposed franchise is enacted into law. Mr. Joint Chairman, I also reserve my right to interpolate on the constitutional issues before these joint hearings. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Lagman. Before we go to the other resolutions, the chairman recognized the presence